This is the Remnant Radio Show, where we're living and learning a restoration lifestyle. Tonight we have our host, Trish Odom. Trish, are you there?
Shalom. Hi. I was lost somewhere.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I did the intro, Trish, so go for it.
Thank you, Nitza. Sorry about that. Don't know what happened there. Well, since you did the intro, and that's kind of what I was geared up for, I have to shift gears here a little bit. And not funny. Sometimes things can throw us off a little bit, and we have to quickly get back on track.
So you were going to talk about the sixth day and how it has to do with food and the Day of Atonement.
Yes. The title for the show is Day 6, Food for Man and the Day of Atonement. It's kind of interesting about this whole study because I was praying a lot as to what to do for the show and had some thoughts rolling around in my head. It just seemed to have a little bit of a struggle trying to pull stuff together. And I woke up very early here recently, sometime in the last week, and what I kept hearing was Day 6, Food for Man and the Day of Atonement. And I'm thinking, okay, Father, you're speaking to me, and what am I supposed to do with this? And I just very clearly heard that was supposed to be the title for the show. And, it's kind of interesting because it's, my heart is food and nutrition and wanting to eat, a clean, undefiled food that is honoring and pleasing to the Father. And, at the same time, we got our fall feasts, that are coming up here real soon. And, last year was our first time at, observing any of the feasts. And so this has kind of been a whole new, ball game for us. And I feel like, sometimes, when I think about the feast, I feel so uneducated still. I think there's a lot that I still don't know. And the Day of Atonement was one last year as we were doing our best to observe that. It didn't, I don't want to say empty, but since it was our first time and trying to read the scriptures and understand, what we do to observe that, I walked away from the Day of Atonement last year just really asking the Father to do a work, to show me, to show our family, what the Day of Atonement was really all about. And I think there's so many aspects of how the Day of Atonement applies to our life, but what the Father was given me to put together for this show had to do with the food and just how, the food that He made for man is connected to the Day of Atonement. So the study we got going here tonight has to do with a bunch of details concerning that. First of all, I just want to cover, the sixth day is when He created man and told him what to eat. And in Genesis 1:27, it says, so Elohim created man in His image. In the image of Elohim created He him. Male and female created He them. Genesis 1:29, and Elohim said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat or food. In Genesis 1:31, and Elohim saw everything that He had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. You go back to Genesis chapter 1, verse 11. It says, and Elohim said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth, and it was so. And then in Genesis 1:12, and Elohim saw that it was good. And one of the pictures that I was seeing there is that, through all the days of creation, when you read what the Father is doing, after He got done, with each of those days, He said, and it was good, or it was very good. And, back to the food that He created and said was good and was good for man, I just had this little phrase that kept rolling around in my head that the good man was to eat the good food. And I looked up the word good in the Hebrew, and it's number 2896. And, I'll just say that honestly, I'm not very schooled in, the Hebrew as far as pronunciations of words. And sometimes I, can get the pronunciations correct and other times I can't. But it's Towb or Tobe. I don't know if it's Tob or Tobe, exactly how to pronounce that.
Most people
But
say Tove or Tobe.
okay, okay. But it means good men or women, beautiful, best, better, bountiful, cheerful or at ease, to be in favor, fine or glad, pleasure, precious, prosperity, ready, sweet, wealth, welfare, and to be well favored. And I know that's kind of a mouthful, and I was thinking, well, I'll just pick a few, definitions. But, I was just on my heart to write down, kind of all those words that I gathered from what was good. And, back to something that I've talked about before on Remnant Radio and been able to share with a lot of people is, the word good, when the Father called it good food, one of those definitions that it is the best, and that it is beautiful, and that it is better. And, what I have seen is that man has tried so hard to take our food and think that they can make it better by all the modifications that they do to it. And we end up having this food that, it no longer has a seed in it. So obviously it can't produce after its own kind when it doesn't have a seed. Or it becomes, a diverse seed through, a modification or combining of the DNAs through the genetics. And I just see that the Father is really trying to get our attention and showing us that, that one way that we can present ourselves, before him as that pure and spotless bride to meet our bridegroom is concerning the food that we eat.
Yeah.
Um,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
I was just going to notice that when you're talking about day 6 and the day of preparation, whether it's the 6,000th year, the 6th day, and we're getting ready to go into the 6th month, which is, the time that you prepare yourself for the wedding supper in the 7th month. So your parallels are great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing to me, more so than ever before now, as the Father just began to reveal so many truths to us a few years ago. And I open the Word and I read a verse, and it's like multiple messages, come out and jump at me that I never ever saw before, of how everything is so connected. And we were just from our experience.
Wait a minute, Trisha. Are you saying that
Um,
Yahweh has a female brain if everything's connected?
Well, he did create male and female.
No, I was just saying it. It was just reminding me of that. That of course he knows everything, but I'm sorry, I didn't mean to throw you there. I just couldn't resist.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. Anyway, back to so many things being so connected, and wanted to go on to another point that I had here about the 6th appointed feast of Yah, the Day of Atonement, a day to afflict our souls. A couple things I want to share concerning this, and then kind of bring out some points of how I see these two things connected. In John 16, 7 through 13, that passage, verse 8 of there says, "And when he, the Ruah, is come, he will reprove or convict the world of sin and of righteousness and of judgment." And verse 13 says that the Spirit of truth will guide you into all truth and will show you things to come. Back to what I was saying about, I believe that the Father is really as far as his people that have eyes to hear, or eyes to see and ears to hear, the Ruah is really wanting to show us, and convict us of the sin, I think, of eating, food that has become diverse, food that won't produce after its own kind, food that is unclean before the Father. And, which when we put that in our bodies, we become, defiled and unclean. And which just produces so many things of what we see, of sickness and disease, that I saw prevalent in my own life for so long, that I see in other people, hearing them complain about the things that bother them and their aches and their pains, and even on down to the cancers, which even medical science, some of those doctors who really want to come out and speak some of the truths that they're seeing are, admitting after a course of however many years being in their practice that they're seeing that, people who eat, these defiled, adulterated foods are sicker than those who, would eat more of a raw, whole foods, what we would consider to be more of a clean diet. And onto Leviticus 16:29, where it's here talking about the Day of Atonement. It says, "And this shall be a statute forever unto you, that in the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, that ye shall afflict your souls, and do no work at all, whether it be one of your own country, or stranger that sojourneth among you." And regarding the word afflict in that passage, in the Hebrew, it's 60:31, and as close as I can come to pronouncing it, it sounds like anah. Does that sound correct to you, Nitza?
That's what I would say. That's what I would say.
Okay. It's identified with number 60:30 through the idea of looking down or browbeating. And 60:30 says to eye, or generally to heed or pay attention, by implying to respond. Back to the rest of the definition of 60:31 for afflict is to depress, literally or figuratively, abase self, chasten self, deal hardly with, or humble self. And one of the things that the Spirit is showing me, that we can afflict our souls by humbling ourselves, by, in a sense, dealing harshly with ourselves and looking at the food aspect in our life and seeing if it lines up with what the Father is telling us that we should be eating. The atonement was meant to cleanse us. And, one of the definitions there, I'll get to in just a minute, for atonement is to cleanse. Back to the word afflict there, it has the definition also of paying attention by implying to respond. So when the Spirit is showing us that these things that we are eating are not pleasing to the Father, then it's an action word there for us. It takes an act of ourself to respond to that, to allow the Father to reveal those truths to us of what it is we should eat that's pleasing to Him. And how, that atonement there that was done, by the priest, the sacrificial atonement, was to cover us and to cleanse us and to forgive and be merciful and to pardon and purge away our sin. I see that there's a picture of, the Messiah and being the perfect, sacrificial lamb who is the atonement for our sins. The other thing I see there with atonement is it means to reconcile or make reconciliation. And, through the Messiah, through him being the sacrificial lamb, it is the way for us to be reconciled to the Father and to come back into that covenant relationship with Him. Go on here. One of the things that I was questioning, when I was looking at all of this regarding the 6th day and man created and told what to eat, and the 6th appointed feast of Yah, and some further things to bring that together is of how those were correlating. Because even as I was putting this together, I was seeing there, what he did on the 6th day. I was reading through the Day of Atonement and all the priest's duties, and so I went back and I looked at day 6 a little more closely. And it wasn't just that he created man and then told him that the food that he made on day 3 was, was food for him, but it was also the living creatures of the earth that he made on day 6. And when you look at the 6th feast, you see there on the Day of Atonement that the living creatures of the earth that were created on the 6th day, the clean ones, that is, were the creatures that were used for the sacrifices for the Day of Atonement once a year. And then kind of back to what I'd said earlier, our atonement was cared for by a clean sacrifice, both in the priestly sacrificial duties and the very life of the Messiah himself. And it got me reflecting on just the Day of Atonement as a whole, and how could our sins be, atoned for by an unclean animal sacrifice? It was just a thought, rolling through my head that there's no way that, that could even be possible. And so even though he made all those living creatures of the earth on that day, it was the clean ones that would have been used in the sacrificial system.
Well, the other thing to note, that's interesting, that we have the clean animals to cover us and make us clean with the sacrifices. And there is a purpose for the unclean animals. They take care of the garbage on the earth. But that's exactly what they're for. So that's an interesting thing. If you look at the clean animals, are only what covers you, and yet we ingest, as a whole, as a people, even believers, we continue to ingest things that are unclean.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. And I think we're coming up here close to on a break. Looks like, Nitza. But don't think we're quite there yet.
I don't see anything loaded yet, so keep on going.
Yep, not quite there yet.
It probably load in a few. So go ahead and take another minute or so.
Alrighty. One of the things that the Father just keeps speaking to my heart, it's like the same message, over and over and over that I keep hearing. It is, as I'm studying about the Day of Atonement and about the food, and you just keep asking him, how are these connected? What is this? How many more things, related to this, that these two things, the Day 6 and the Day of Atonement, are go together. And the message that I keep hearing is, I will show my people who have eyes to see and ears to hear how they need to be cleansed from the unclean and defiled food that they have been eating. The pagan nations have lied to my people by telling them that what they are offering them to eat is good, and it is time for that lie to be exposed. What I see there is, I think, actually, we need to probably take a little break here and do our commercial and come back and touch on this a little bit more after the break.
You're listening to Remnant Radio on the Messianic Lifestyle audio magazine broadcast, Lamb Radio.
Shalom. Welcome back to Remnant Radio here. This is Trish Odom from Thousand Hills. And I'm speaking on Day 6, Food for Man, and the Day of Atonement. Nitza is also here, Nitza Moshe from Remnant Remedy in the background. So we'll continue on with kind of where we left off, Nitza.
Yes, and you want to share your website there, Trish, so that people will know how to reach you?
Yes, it's www.thousandhillsgeneralstore.com. It is still being reformatted. It should be available as of September 1st. So you can look at it at that point in time. And if you want to reach me personally, my email address is thousandhills7, that's the number 7, at ymail.com.
All right, thank you.
Back to what we were talking about before the break, Nitza. I was just sharing about what the Father has been, speaking to my heart. It's kind of the same message over and over and over. Talking to different people about his food. For I'd say a year ago, I seemed to still get quite a bit of response where every time I'd bring up the fact that the Father had instruction regarding what we were to eat, I got a lot of feedback that people were saying, oh, I can't focus on that. That instruction is not for now. And but I've seen a change. I would say, especially the last couple months, at least in the community where in the area where I'm from, seems to be more hearts, opening to the fact of the Father's instruction. A lot of people through their sickness, I think their eyes are being opened too, and their kind of heart is ready. So some of them have some changes in what they're eating, and through that they've actually seen some changes in their physical body. And so the question, and thoughts passing through other people's minds seem to be, I wonder if the Father really did have something to say about our food, and if we should still be following that. One of the things I'd like to go on to is I've made a little list here. I don't know if you have my notes in front of you, Nitza, where I think it's on the second page. Maybe is it the second page? It's the list that talks about...
Yeah, it's the days of creation go hand in hand with the 7 appointed feasts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And I was running through some stuff, and as I said, I'm praying about the Father showing me how all these feasts and his days are connected. I just wanted to kind of read off, what I had written down here. Day 1, he created light. That's what he kept speaking to my heart. And that the light of the world, is the Messiah. And the first feast is Passover. And how there on day 1 that he divided the light from the darkness. And one of the things that he was showing me is that, the angel of death or darkness passed over those who had the blood of the Passover lamb on their doorposts because they had the light of the world. And the Messiah was the Passover sacrificial lamb who died to cleanse us from our sin. Day 2, the firmament, which he called heaven, and the second feast, their unleavened bread. Some of these I didn't have any further information on or details other than just day 2 and the basics of it, and then what the name of the feast that coincides with that. So day 3 was the earth and seas, the grass, herbs, and trees, and the third feast or first fruits was the first crops of the barley harvest. Day 4, the sun, moon, and stars, and the fourth feast, Shavuot or Feast of Weeks. Day 5, the living creatures of air and water, goes along with the fifth feast, Feast of Trumpets. And then day 6, the living creatures of the earth and man, the sixth feast, Day of Atonement. And then day 7, the Sabbath rest, with the seventh feast of Tabernacles or Sukkot. And I didn't really cover a lot of details regarding some of those other days and feasts, since my heart right now is so focused on day 6, and that's the area that the Father just kind of had me focused on for what we were doing tonight. But I just keep seeking for his truth, and I think that he's shown me that these his times and his seasons, his calendar, Yah's calendar is outlined there, in the days of creation, his time frame for man from beginning to end. And that's what I'm seeing and talking to a few other people. I seem to be, gathering some of the same information that, the Father is showing them concerning some of his days and his feasts.
It'd be kind of interesting to compare those to the seals and the woes and how they might kind of line up also.
Mm-hmm. I have a friend who's working with another lady, and she's taken, the days of creation, the feast, the 7 seals, they're out of Revelation. I can't remember what all else there in Scripture, but just showing how all of those are linked together. And I'm not sure if the ministry is called Creation Gospel, so, I don't want to put that name out there and say that's it for sure, but it does have something to do with...
Oh, is that Halissa Elwine?
I don't know her name.
Okay, it's probably Halissa Elwine, and she does do, I think, Creation Gospel.
Gotcha. Yeah, I wasn't familiar with her name. I just know that there's a friend that knows her that's been working with her concerning that. Oh. I just one little thing I wanted to address here kind of goes along with what I was saying before. The quote here on my paper is, "Did the Messiah, change the food laws?" And because that's what I thought for so many years from the teaching that I had received. And I find it kind of funny just kind of going through the internet and reading a bunch of articles that I do and the books that I come across, and of course, scripture there for sure. But I was thinking, if he did do that and we can eat anything we want, then how come there are those, even in medical science, who think that people who eat a raw or whole foods diet and use herbs are healthier than those who eat white flour product, refined sugar, preservatives, additives, and the like, and take prescription drugs? And I think if we just believe in the word of Yah, then ultimately I don't think we need medical science to prove anything to us that that he knows what he's talking about. But through that, some people are reading those medical reports and seem to be it seems to be drawing them to the Father's word, and then they seek him for and get some understanding that how much these food laws, this instruction does apply to our lives.
Absolutely. Well, to me, it's all boiling back down to the olive and the tom in Genesis. And when you take away life from the seed and the food, then you don't have that frequency and energy of life that Yahweh created that holds everything together. So you're basically putting darkness into your body when you eat things that aren't full of life that he created.
Yep. Yeah, that is so true. That is so true. I just back to the Day of Atonement, and the cleansing, in our physical bodies. Sometimes I think that we can get to a point of wondering, what does it really matter? This physical body is going to die anyway, and that's something that I used to walk in. It's just going to go away anyway, and but just getting more into the scriptures and understanding that the blessings, that the Father has for us, here on this earth, but then even, after this, and that he says that, if you obey me, I will bless you, and if you disobey me, then I will curse you, and those still very much, apply to us, and have definitely seen it through experiences in my own life of reading the scriptures and being able to verify that, I've walked that out in my own life and have watched other people walk that out. And, I think whether it's food or anything, we need to constantly reevaluate if we are doing what the Father wants us to be doing in our life to present ourselves as a pure and spotless bride before him. It's, with the Day of Atonement coming up, I don't believe it's just about, one central area, even though I think the Father is really honing in on his people concerning food. But I think there's many areas, that we can just examine and see whether what we are doing is pleasing to him. If we're listening to the Spirit and willing to, to heed that, to pay attention and respond.
Well, I see a parallel in what Father keeps showing me is, because I'm into the oils and the linens and things, which is about spiritually and physically preparing the bride. But I always hear this little whisper from him, it's like, you don't think you can just put on the oils and the linen and think you're ready. And, just like any bride, when she gets ready to get married, she's usually, going on a good diet. She wants to make sure she's healthy and she looks her very best. And I think that's what Father's trying to do right now is wake up his people and say, it's time to take care of your body. It's time to clean your spiritual and physical house, because this is all part of the preparation for the bride.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
And it
that is
requires
very,
work on our part.
yeah, it does. It definitely requires work on our part. One other thing I wanted to address here, and it's just on my heart. First of all, I want to preface it with a few things. When I was putting this study together, I didn't know, as the notes were coming together, I was thinking, well, Father, are we going to move through this quickly, or are we not going to move through this quickly? And and so I was just really praying, if we got through some of this stuff, how else are we supposed to continue it with sharing here? And just wanted to be open to the Spirit, and the work that the Spirit wants to do, in our hearts and in our lives. And just one thing really here on my heart, since it seems like we've covered our notes here, and as we've been talking here the last few minutes, I have just been praying for specific direction here for the rest of our time. Anyway, there's something that I've struggled with, and I just want to put it out there on the air because I believe that there are others who are struggling with it as well. And one thing that the Father keeps laying on my heart concerning doing the radio show is just being honest, letting people know, what my own struggles are, so that we can identify. We can realize that we're all trying to head in the same direction. We want to serve Father, and we want to do what's right. We want to do what pleases Him. We want to heed to the Spirit. And sometimes in some situations in life, other things can rise up, and the enemy does a great job at trying to steer us away from following the truth that we know we need to follow. And I'm not going to say I have all the answers here because I don't think that I do, maybe, Nitza, and I would love your feedback on this. But it's concerning, an example of going out away from our own homes. We can be so, how should I say it, controlled in our own food environment within our household, whether we grow our own food or what we choose to shop for and bring it into our home to feed our family. But, sometimes when people come over, they bring food that, it's a diverse food. It's a food maybe doesn't have seeds in it, like seedless grapes. And, or we end up going somewhere else. And whether it be something we were invited to or an event, there is just all kinds of things going on there, food-wise, that we just look at and think, boy, I don't want to consume that. And I say this because I don't think that I'm the only one who's dealt with this. Is that correct, Nitza?
That's true.
And I seem to find that in some of my conversations with others. And I was listening to something here just recently on the radio, and they were discussing the concept of food. And it was the fact that, Daniel was one of them that refused the king's delicacies. And he asked for food and for water. He was presented with something different. He was presented with the same foods, per se, that we should not be consuming, that we're offered out there in all these various avenues of things that we may attend. But he refused. And the Father's been showing me that how much I need to stand up and I need to refuse because it's not pleasing to Him. And I need to refuse respectfully and, with honor. And just like, Daniel asked for something else, are we willing to, either ask for something else that would be pleasing to the Father, or sometimes just, say no thank you, walk away and not consume it at all. And I know that I myself have, just chosen not to eat. Or if I thought that there was going to be an issue where I was going, I would eat or feed my family beforehand. And, some of my own struggles within that is, I think, a battle, that others can identify with is we so want to please the Father, but sometimes I'll speak personally for myself. Sometimes we don't want to offend other people, or I don't want to offend other people. And just that battle there of, well, are they going to look down upon me? Are they going to think I'm crazy? And so just a working through that and a process of saying, does it really matter what they think of me? They already think that I'm crazy because I observe the Sabbath. And so, does it really matter? Because, ultimately the one that I need to please is the Father anyway. And presenting myself as a pure and spotless bride before him and allowing that Spirit to lead us into all truth and then to walk that out. So, I just want to put out there that, if you're feeling that and struggling through some of that, you're not the only one. Whether it be the food or whether it be so many other areas of our life, I think we can all battle with that. And especially me with talking to other women, there seems to be that fear issue that rises up. And I think that as I keep praying and asking the Father to just help me to be so secure in who I am and who he's called me to be in walking with him, that that no matter what, it doesn't matter what others are going to say.
Right. Well, that comes with some vigilance, and we'll probably have to talk about that when you get back from this next break.
Okay.
You are listening to the Remnant Radio Show on the Messianic Lifestyle Audio Magazine broadcasts. Lamb Radio.
Shalom, and welcome back to Remnant Radio. We have Trish Odom here speaking on Day 6, Food for Man and the Day of Atonement. And Nitza Moshe is here with me from Remnant Remedy. And we were talking right before the break, I should say, about vigilance. Nitza, you had said something about that concerning our conversation. So,
it takes a lot of vigilance, and to be honest, I'm not always vigilant. And I think that sometimes the cares of the world would get in the way, and sometimes you got to pick your battles. But I think to me it's a lot of things that he's cleaning up in our lives, and that we might take 2 steps forward and 3 back and 3 forward and 4 back, but eventually, if we have the heart and the desire and ask him to help us, we can get to that place where it's pretty relatively easy. But some of my thoughts when you were talking is number one, especially if you're going to leave the home or go out to eat or travel, and in our busy society, it's hard to think that way, but there really needs to be, it comes back to preparation. How can I prepare to make sure that I've arranged for the right kind of food to be on the road or where we're visiting, or, like it's, instead of when you're traveling, I've got to travel 1,000 miles this next week, and then another 6,000 miles in the next 4 weeks, and then another 1,000. And so it takes, okay, where are we going to stop? Maybe we need to stop at the grocery store and fill up on some stuff and take a cooler. At least for a lot of things, I like to do that, and then, maybe have 1 meal a day out where I know there's going to be hopefully a good salad bar. And the other thing is that, I think to me it's a lot like evangelism, in the sense that I'm not an evangelist per se. That's not my calling. Mine's more of a teacher. But I think if we have the right heart attitude and people know that we're sincere about what we think and believe, and we just are trying to be obedient and humble to that people will begin to notice and take notice to why you are consistently careful about what you're putting in your temple, and just share with them, we are the living stones tabernacle. This is his temple. It's not mine. It belongs to him. He is the Father of light. He is the light of all creation, and he wants light, and he wants it to be in my body, and he wants to live and dwell in, and I'm his bride. And I don't want to dress in black physically, spiritually, or with the food that I eat. And so that is kind of the attitude. And the more we have that realization, I kind of liken it to a dirty glass of water. Mm-hmm. And the more the water is purified, the clearer and brighter it is in our spirits and our bodies. And a lot of us just have way too many pollutants in that glass of water. But if we're just really, I believe, humble and pressing forward, that eventually certain things like that in areas in our life, he will purify and clean up. I mean, thankfully, he has done that in many areas of my life, but, there's lots of areas that still need a lot of work.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's true for a lot of us. Nitza is just a continual, cleansing. And back to what we were talking about before regarding the Day of Atonement, and that cleansing that we all need. And just realizing, that when we, there's times I think when we eat something and we think, well, is that okay or is it not okay? And then we wonder, and because we don't really know the source of where it's coming from, and then there are other times that we definitely know, and but it is a road. It takes vigilance, and I think it's a continual cleansing, like we've been talking about, whether it is this topic or many other areas in our life. You were saying something about just our heart attitude being in the right place and being able to share with people. I think that, there's a lot of there. I agree with you. And sometimes there's a quote that I heard here a long time ago. And it was really simple, but I think of it a lot. I speak loudly, sometimes use words.
Yes.
And, yeah, and, I've been thinking about that a lot lately, too, with just a continual cleansing. Every time I turn around, it's like, the Father is showing me areas of my life where I'm just, defiled and things aren't pleasing to Him. And, and then I think about the changes that He's bringing about, that He's still wanting to bring about, and how we present ourselves, to other people, and loving people, and being kind to them, and reaching out to them, and being a servant to them, but yet living our life in a way that's pleasing to Him. And sometimes explanations to people concerning why we do what we do are without any words. It is just a life example. And then there are times when, from my own experience, that I've just been able to share and open up. And it's like, pour out a full and overflowing cup of Father's truth concerning food. So I think each situation is a little bit different, depending on what's going on, where we're at, the work that the Father's doing in our life and someone else's life, and just ultimately being led, by the Ruach.
Well, can I share? Do we have time? I want to share a story with you.
Yeah, we do. Is it a 15-minute story?
No, it's not that long. No. It was actually the most humiliating time in my life, I'd have to say, on a social event. Anyway, about 8 years ago, we were very excited. We had a wonderful home fellowship, praising and worshiping, and there were dancers and everything. And so we decided it was turn to be at our house. And we had a ministry. We dealt with hundreds of families in a ministry that we had for a private school covering for home educators. And so, of course, most of that was Christians and not necessarily into Hebrew roots at all. But, we had some that were interested, and we thought it'd be wonderful to invite them to the Shabbat that happened on Hanukkah. And so what happened was one of them brought a plate of shrimp. Shrimp dip. And it was interesting. There were, I just didn't say a word. Maybe I should have, but I just knew it was going to cause a real strife, because this woman had a lot of pain in her history, and I thought, I'll just let it sit there, and hopefully everybody will be nice and polite and just work around it, and realize that we have people that are visiting. And, most people did work around it, but there was one, of course, that just had to write out loud, just, brought the, shrimp, and, and just made a huge scene out of it. And then, one of our other Christian friends were like, well, it's not like it's a sin. And so of course I had to open up because now I'm caught. And I was like, well, yeah, I think it is. And so they were just like, you've got to be kidding. Well, I had a relationship with this person. So, I just said, yes, I personally believe that's what the word says, and that's how I take it. And that would have been fine, and I would have been able to address him. He could have asked me questions, and we could go back and forth because it was based on relationship. There was respect. But we had a new visitor who just wanted to corner this man and really got into his face. And it was really horrible because he just kept pressing him and pressing him to get this Christian to acknowledge that it was sin to eat a shrimp cocktail. And it was just, oh, it was awful. And, we had to ask the person, please stop. And the Christian was very nice, actually, in the sense that he kept asking, please get out of my face. And so,
Yeah.
And again, we would have won a lot more people over if we just would have loved them and said, this is great if you want to do that, but this is the way we feel, and we don't want to participate. And all of those people would have had no problem. I mean, they might have been a little hurt, but they would have had no problem because it was based on relationship and respect. And I think whatever that area is in our lives, that's kind of the problem that we have, is we don't live that example with humbleness and a love attitude. Instead, we want to go around and beat everybody up. If the Ruach doesn't convince them, then they're only doing it to conform externally anyway.
Yeah.
So I wanted to leave my own house, but I couldn't. And then to make matters worse, which is a different side note, was we had some other couples who were Messianic who decided to let everybody know that they didn't think Hanukkah was appropriate to have any part of whatsoever. So, it just turned out to be a horrible event. And they didn't even bother. Again, these were people we fellowship with. They could have called up before and said, we have a problem with this, and we want you to know that, and we won't be there. But instead, they showed up and offended everybody. I mean, even if I had agreed with them, it would have been a great offense. And to this day, some of those believers don't want anything to do with Hebrew roots because of that happened on that day.
Yeah. Yep. I can understand, some of that with I think we've seen a lot of people hurt and turned away from, any part of the Father's truth or instruction because, the actions of any of us. I believe that in past, I've done it in my own life, and, I've seen it done by other people. And we just got to be so careful, in what we're doing, and that our life is, a living example before Him of showing His love, walking in His commandments. Because if we love Him, we will keep His commandments.
Right.
But yeah, back to that relationship, that the people see that, what we're doing is because we love the Father.
Right. Well, I think we only have about just a minute or so to wrap this up, because I think there's a show coming in right after us. So if there's anything else you want to share. And Trish, are you going to be back on the 30th to teach too, right?
I am. At that point in time, I'll be about our website and what we are doing here on our own land, living off-grid. So the show will be focused around that and the food stuff that we are preparing for, and the clean food we are growing, both animal and herbs and trees wise.
Awesome. And I will be gone next week to Shebrews, and I believe Posey will be the Remnant lady that week, and so it's up to you to take us out, Trish.
All righty. Thank you for joining us here on Remnant Radio, and shalom, everyone.
Hey, so Mark, I have a question for you, and I have to say this. You had a great segment last week on flat Earth, and I want to call attention to that because on the Messianic Lamb Network, you even brought that out in a special segment.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, and it was great. And you know, when I got on and I went back and looked at it, do you know you got 3 thumbs down?
No way.
Yeah.
I did not look at that.
Yeah,
on YouTube, there were 3 thumbs down.
And so,
wow,
I don't understand that, but because do flat earthers not have a sense of humor? That was hilarious.
No. Anti-Trumpers don't have a sense of humor either.
Yeah, that's true. Well, hey, I found on, you know, you were talking about apps earlier. So,
cool.
Right here, I don't know if you can see that. You can get a flat Earth app. A flat Earth. Yeah. See how flat that is? And that'll help remind you when truth starts to kind of tickle back into your spidey senses and saying it's round. Then you say, "No, I have the app."
Very cool. I like it. Yep. That works. I like it.
Yeah.
But
and that way you'll always know when that sun's gonna. I don't know how it comes up in the morning, but it sure. And I never could figure out on the flat Earth if it's coming from the east and it's going to the west and it's only 25 miles wide or 25 miles up or in the air. I don't know how they say it, but then it gets dark, you know, because it gets further away. But how does it come back around to the east again? I mean, does it go under the earth and pop back up real quick?
No. Wait, no, John, you didn't. You see, you saw the segment and then you even saw the video, but you just didn't get it. See, it doesn't just it spins. The Earth, they didn't say the Earth don't spin. The Earth spins, but it spins and randomly, like throughout, you know, the universe like this, and it's constantly going like that.
Okay, all right.
There you go.
So what happens? Okay, and I get that because you were talking about how one side has, like, you know, certain, like, North America, South America.
You're right.
And then on the other side was like Israel and
that's
and
right.
Then, but they drilled through there.
Right. Well, no. There's a movie out there. There's an old movie where they actually just they drilled through the middle of it like that, right there. See.
Yeah.
And then what they did is they run elevators through it. From what I understand, the one world government is working on this right now.
Oh. And so if you fall into that elevator shaft, do you pop out the other side, or do you just kind of start?
There's no way you can you can't fall through that. There's too much. There's way too much security and stuff, so you can't.
Oh yeah, those security checkpoints.
Right now, they're keeping it all in a plastic container. You know, as they're working on all of that, and so our weather system is a little bit off. But, yeah.
I get it, and that's what's doing that, and you can't fall because we're buoyant.
Buoyant, that's it. That's good. Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Okay, so we're not really. It's not possible to fall due to buoyancy.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you started to fall through when you hit the center of Earth, you'd fall back out.
Well, you don't really even fall. It's kind of like, it's almost like being in one of those great big air machines, you know, where you go in there and you're just kind of, it's almost like you're doing skydiving or something. You're just like, and then you just kind of bounce.
Oh, okay.
That's how it works. I mean, I haven't experienced it, but you know, I mean, I'm pretty. It's like you and understanding jive. You know, you just
It's
know
instant.
this is what
Yeah.
it is. Then.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
All right. Well, I like it very much. That's very cool.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.
Don't go away. Your show will start after a break.